Ladies and gentlemen, Violent Games here. Today I wanted to make a video for some of you who may be wanting to know more about all of these platforms, but basically I'm going to be talking about the value proposition between all of the gaming platforms currently available, or at least the big dogs. We're talking about the Nintendo Switch, the PS4 and Pro, the Xbox One and Xbox One X, and then we're going to talk about PC as well, not necessarily in that order. But you get what I'm saying. So without further ado, let's jump into the discussion. Alright, so the first platform, I want to get this one out of the way because everyone's just going to want to say or talk about this in the comment section. Let's talk about the PC Master Race, and this is by far the best gaming platform if you know your way around it. So let's talk about the benefits of PC. You have the best graphics options available. If your rig might not be strong enough to run something at 60 frames per second, you can always downscale. Having that option available is awesome, and I wish consoles would honestly adopt that practice. I would rather have 1080p 60 than 4K barely even 30, to be completely honest. You also have the best performance, again, because the machines can become so powerful, they just run games like above 60 frames per second, and it's gorgeous. And if you're an enthusiast of games and you like performance, this is the platform for you, again. Another thing that's great about PC is you have this massive, expansive library of games, ranging from games from like the early 2000s all the way till now, and a lot of these games are still playable. So you can kind of go through the past and download ports, and sometimes even get emulators on the PC. There's just a lot of things you can get as far as your library goes for the PC. Another thing is you have more options on peripherals for the PC itself. You can get a variety of keyboards, ranging from expensive to non-expensive, gaming-oriented to non-gaming-oriented, and just having a lot of these options available can be really convenient. Say you break your gaming mouse. Oh, I have a Dell mouse available on my work computer. I can just use that for tonight. Having that option on the fly is really, really nice. Furthermore, if you're into VR, the best VR setups are currently available on PC as far as graphics and performance as well. You know, the Oculus is probably going to run better than the PSVR. Again, I wish I had an impression on that, actually. I'm gonna do one of those. And then finally, we have the fact that it's upgradable. You don't necessarily have to pay the massive down cost for PC gaming, though it's pretty much necessary, but we'll get into that. But you can always upgrade your PC marginally to get it to where you want it to be. And the fact that you don't have to outright buy a new PC every couple of years can be appealing to people, especially if you're into tinkering and things of the nature. But now that I've gone over the positives of PC, I kind of want to get into the negatives of the platform as well. Alright, now that I went over some of the positives of owning a PC, and by the way, like still, the verdict on PC is that if you're an enthusiast of gaming and you have the disposable income, you should own one. Like, for sure. Let's get into some of the negatives, though, about owning a PC, especially for people who have never owned one before. I feel like it's really important to go over these issues because a lot of people get into PC gaming thinking it's going to be seamless. There's going to be a few bumps in the road for you. First of all, you have an abundance of potential problems, ranging from not installing your driver updates properly, or just certain games not being compatible. Like, there's an abundance of issues you can have, and if you don't have the technical know-how of how to fix these issues on a regular basis, it's going to be very frustrating for you. And if one of your PC parts breaks because the way you build a PC is so unique versus everyone else's PC, you might not know how to fix it directly. You kind of have to be your own tech support and, like, meet your own needs, and that could be asking a lot from people who are working a lot or maybe who are strapped for cash. You get what I'm saying. Next problem is the huge upfront cost. If you want to get a gaming machine that's worth a damn, in my honest opinion, you have to pay $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 at a time, and that's just a lot. And given the Bitcoin mining situation with the GTX 1080s, the graphics card prices have just skyrocketed, so the upfront cost for a PC has gotten even worse. Another problem with PC gaming is that upgrades may be necessary to keep up with relative games in the future. certain games have compatibility issues, which is another issue. You know, let's just tie those two in together. Another problem is that certain games have compatibility issues with your specific rig. Certain games require certain graphics card requirements that may or may not meet your specs, and there are some nuanced issues between Radeon and Nvidia that some apps have issues with as well. So there are some compatibility issues between PC ports and games, and you know, the console versions. The console versions are very consistent across the platform because the developers could develop them specifically for those consoles. The problem with PC is that every machine, like I said before, is so nuanced and different that you run into these compatibility issues and you might not know how to fix them. You could have like the most boss-ass PC in the world but have a problem running a Far Cry Primal because the port was just bad, because Ubisoft makes bad ports for PC games. But that's just one of the examples. So upgrades might be necessary to keep your PC games running as smoothly as possible, and you're not guaranteed a consistent port. Now the final issue is that PC as a platform relies heavily on a storefront called Steam, and Steam has terrible curation, especially for indie developers. You can run into a lot of broke-ass games on Steam, whereas on the Nintendo platform, and the Xbox platform, and the PS4 platform, you're not going to run into games that are really shitty or just straight up don't work. Every game is at least guaranteed to work on console, and if you owned a console your whole life and never had a PC, you wouldn't know about this issue, but it is something that is actually bad, is that it's much easier to find good quality games on the PS Store and the Nintendo eShop than it is to find on a site like Steam. Now, there are other storefronts like the Microsoft Store and Origins and things like that, but I've also heard complaints about those storefronts as well. And when you're on this boss-ass platform, I'm scratching my head trying to figure out, like, why haven't they figured this out yet? Why isn't the curation a little bit better? You don't own a grocery store and, you know, sell bread with rocks in it or something like that. You get what I'm saying? Or bread that's stale. So yeah, terrible store curation is definitely an issue on this platform. But overall, my verdict on PC is still the same. If you're a gaming enthusiast who wants to get the best out of every single game, have the best performance, the best graphics, and if you have the disposable income, it's worth getting. Like, hands down, it's the best way to game if you can afford it, and if you're willing to put up with those troubleshooting issues, and if you're willing to upgrade it on a regular basis. There's no reason you shouldn't own one and primarily play games on that if it is at all possible and the ports are solid. Just do your research, you know, take your time with it, and you'll love your PC to the end of the planet, you know? Look, to the end of time is what I should have said, okay? I went on a long ramble there. Alright, moving on to the next topic, we have the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. I have the most hands-on experience with these consoles, so I actually feel like I'm really qualified to talk about this one. So, as far as the PS4 goes, I think that the biggest selling point of the PS4 right now is just the amazing exclusives and its great, fantastic library overall. Not only do you get the multi-platforms at varying performances depending on which console you own, but you also have this great library of exclusives. From Horizon Zero Dawn all the way down to Bloodborne and all the games in between, there's just a lot of fun times to be had on the PlayStation 4, and I feel like between all of the other consoles, its library can't be matched if you're talking about the Nintendo Switch and Xbox One is what I'm referring to. So, amazing variety of exclusives. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think what pushes good hardware is good software. The PS4 Pro is not the strongest console on the market, but I feel like it has the most varied experiences that you can have, and I feel like that's way more important than having the best tech in your machine. Another thing that's a benefit to the PlayStation 4 is you have cross-compatible headsets. Now, I didn't know about this till I bought a premium gaming headset. By the way, buying premium gaming headsets is like that's an investment right there. You want to make sure you only have to do it once. But one thing I learned that is if I wanted to move to PC gaming at some point in my life, my headset wouldn't work if I had bought the Xbox One, which is weird because Microsoft basically makes PCs. So why isn't their headset compatible with PC? I don't know. Their controller is, and it seamlessly is, so why not the headsets? I don't know, just dumb. I thought I would bring it up for anyone who is slightly curious, but let's move on. Now, when it comes to the paying for the online service, I think PlayStation Plus actually offers you good games, whereas Microsoft's service doesn't in comparison. I think that they can offer decent games at times, but I think PlayStation Plus kind of trumps it. Just for example, the games you're getting this week, or this month rather, is Ratchet & Clank and Bloodborne, which are two critically acclaimed games that you can only get on the PlayStation and nowhere else. And again, you can only get them on PlayStation. You can't get these games anywhere else. And again, that's just me reiterating the fact that PlayStation's library for the consoles is actually really, really strong. And that's really the salient point I have on the PlayStation. And then finally, or not finally, we have two consoles to choose from with the PlayStation. You have the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Pro. I think this is a positive because it gives you two models to pick from. If you're on a budget, you might want to go with the PlayStation 4 running at a price of $250, but if you wanted to get in and step up with a future-proof console, you can go ahead and get the PlayStation Pro. I like having that option, but you definitely want to go with the Pro if you want your modern games to actually run a bit better and also have it function better with VR. I wouldn't trust a regular PlayStation 4 with the VR. And speaking of VR, PlayStation 4 is offering the most affordable VR headset on the market right now. Really, the Oculus is kind of out of the price range for most people, whereas I think the PSVR actually isn't. I feel like it's very attainable, and if you wanted to kind of dip your toes in the water with VR, I feel like the PlayStation's the safest place to do it. Though my honest opinion, I'll be real with you guys, I don't think PSVR is currently worth it because it's lacking in the library of games department, and it feels more like an experience than like a necessary peripheral. I'll be 100% with you guys, that's how I feel. The most fun I had playing on my friend's VR, I know it's funny, in a previous part, I mentioned that I didn't get hands-on experience, but literally right after that, my friend's like, hey, I got a VR headset, want to come over? And I was like, yeah, I'm actually making a video. But I did get hands-on experience, and the most fun I had was when I was playing Resident Evil 7. I feel like horror is probably the future of VR, and that's where I might actually enter the VR sphere when the price comes down and we have more horror games on it. So that's just my opinion on PSVR, and the price right now for PSVR is still kind of high, and you could actually buy one of the other consoles for almost the same price, and I'll get into that when I cover that console. Anyways, let's get into the negatives of PlayStation 4. I kind of have a few. I hope this doesn't come off as confirmation bias, guys. I really do like the PlayStation as a platform. They have not let me down. Aside from the online issues that happened when the console launched, those really haven't happened to me anymore. So, that's good. But yeah, the negatives are kind of, almost cross-console anyhow. Like, for example, you have to pay for online. I feel like that kind of sucks because PC doesn't have to, but console players, we get nickeled and dimed just to play games online with our friends. I feel like that kind of sucks. I think it's around $50 a year. I honestly don't remember. I apologize for that. You also run into bad frame rates at times. Like, the fact that these consoles can't maintain above 30 frames per second on a consistent basis kind of pisses me off. And I know it's because of the graphics culture that, oh, we need to have 4K graphics and people need to look real. And if you sacrifice your game's performance to achieve that, you're a fucking terrible game dev in my opinion. But, that's just one of the problems you have as a console player, and you don't get that benefit like you would if you owned a PC. So bad frame rates still plague the console, way more on the PS4 than the Pro. I have to say that. When I got the Pro, I noticed that all my Arcane Studio games like Dishonored and Prey actually ran at a more consistent frame rate than they did on the previous console. It's just something I think that is worth referencing when you go out to maybe get one of these things. And the other thing about the PlayStation 4 is the thumbstick quality on the controllers is terrible. Now, I recommend you get Control Freaks anyhow for your thumbsticks so that you have better precision aiming in FPS games. I know they're awkward to get used to, but trust me, guys, get Control Freaks. You're only going to improve the life of your controllers. Your PS4 controllers will almost never die or become useless. But basically, the rubber on the thumbsticks of the default PlayStation 4 controller, they're just ass. And I don't know why they... I don't know, I just really dislike the thumbstick design of the PlayStation 4. I think it's too small, it's way too close to the controller, it just feels awkward to me. So get yourself some Control Freaks to avoid this issue, and let's move on. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, time to discuss the Nintendo Switch as a platform. I really enjoy the Nintendo Switch, so I can't wait to get started. Let's start with the positives, of course. First up, we have amazing startup times for the Switch. Whether you're turning it on, whether you're, taking it from the docked mode to the mobile mode, everything about the Switch is seamless. When you put a cartridge into that system, it's ready to go, unless it has a patch that it needs to quickly install. But you don't need to download games to the hard drive like you do with the Xbox One and the PS4. This makes you feel very nostalgic of like older consoles, where you would just put the thing in and it's ready to go. I really like this thing about the Nintendo Switch. Next up, we have a great library. This console's only been out a year, and the library for this machine is very impressive. I would go as far as to say is the Nintendo Switch's launch year has been more impressive than gaming consoles within like the past 10 to 20 years, if anything. It just feels incredible that in 1 year you had all of these system sellers on your console, like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, Mario vs. Rabbids, and so on. Like, the Nintendo Switch is killing it, and it's selling like hotcakes as a result. People want to own a Nintendo Switch. Now, another thing that is really good about the Nintendo Switch is that it is the best platform for indie games ever. Like, the fact that you can have it in a mobile mode, and indie games usually run at a lower resolution anyways, makes it the best device for any indie game ever because you have that on-the-go option. It also eats at the battery less when you're playing a lower resolution indie game, so that the life you get out of the Switch's battery is going to be better for playing those games. Like, if you like Stardew Valley, you need to get one of these machines for yourself and play that. I'm not a fan of Stardew Valley by any means, but you are not going to see me play an indie game on the PS4 ever again, unless it's exclusive to the PS4, of course, like Don't Starve. So yes, this is the best platform for indie games, and that is a positive that needs to be sung to the heavens. Another thing about the Nintendo Switch that's easy to love is that the fact that it's a mobile console, and I usually didn't think that this was going to affect me in my life. I just didn't really see room in my life for a mobile gaming console, but guys, it's fucking awesome. The fact that you can go to the DMV or the doctor's office or the dentist in the waiting rooms and never be bored, it's really awesome if you love AAA gaming, and that's what this device is. It's AAA gaming on a mobile platform, and it's awesome. There's not much else to say. It works properly, it runs well. I can play Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 full 60 frames per second while I'm just sitting there waiting to get my hair cut. Like, it's just the best. I love the fact that the console is mobile, and it kind of makes up for the other shortcomings that it has. And another thing that's kind of a positive, but doesn't really play into me as a gamer, is that its online surface is cheaper than both Microsoft's and PlayStation's. It's notably cheaper. I wish I would have wrote down the actual freaking numbers, but I'm an idiot. But it's something worth considering, and it's optional. You don't really need to have this if you already have one of the other platforms. I would prefer to play online games when I'm sitting at a console. You know what I'm saying? Not, holding a tablet or using Wi-Fi exclusively to connect to the internet. So I would prefer to play Rainbow Six Siege online than Splatoon. Let's just put it that way. Now let's move into some of the negatives of the Nintendo Switch. First off, the system lacks power compared to its competitors. The PS4 and Xbox One, both versions of those consoles, are significantly more powerful, but this is to be expected because the Nintendo Switch is a gaming tablet. However, I think Nintendo kind of makes up for this shortcoming due to the fact that their games tend to take the direction of performance over graphic fidelity, and their art direction is usually stellar. If you don't believe me, look at Mario Odyssey. The fact that that game runs at 60 frames per second, it looks gorgeous when you play it on a tablet. I feel like games are focusing way too much on graphics, and they're forgetting what makes a video game a video game. Next up, we have the fact that some of the switches are actually warping. Apparently, some of the switches are actually overheating. It's a product defect that makes the Nintendo Switch bend. However, these cases are few and far between compared to the majority, and the consoles that are bent aren't broken. They're still playable, which, I mean, there's worse things that can happen to your console. However, Nintendo is working on this issue, so if you are concerned about this before you purchase one, just wait a couple months and keep doing research on it, and eventually Nintendo Switches will probably have it patched out of the system. So that won't be a problem forever, but my Switch isn't bent yet, I don't think. I'm gonna check it now. And then finally, the one thing that kind of bothers me about the Nintendo Switch is that the controls are not very intuitive. The controls usually take the X and A button, which are the top button and the right button, as the primary action buttons, which I think is very weird, and it's not really intuitive to Xbox or PC or PS4, basically all the other platforms that have existed for such a long time. They kind of go in their own way, and the reason they do is because the right thumbstick, you can't really rest your thumb on it and press buttons. You kind of have to arc your thumb to go over the thumbstick. It's a very awkward console to get used to compared to the other consoles on the market. But what I will say is that having the Nintendo Switch is like an awkward first date, but after you get used to each other, you're gonna fall in love because of the mobile functionality and the games library that it has available to it. So that's my final verdict on the Nintendo Switch. I love this console, guys. I really, really do. There's not a lot of drawbacks to it, but what I will say is that if you're gonna own only one console, I don't think this is necessarily the best value proposition. I think that you're better off with the PS4 or PC, to be completely honest, because you're going to have a bit better of a games library, because both consoles have been around, you know, forever. Or PC's been around forever, and PS4's been around for 4 or 5 years. The games library is a little better on the PS4, given that you can go back and actually buy really, really good games for cheap at like a game store or online. Whereas with the Nintendo Switch, you're paying top dollar or next to top dollar almost every time you go to purchase a game, because the console's so new and it's so hot and everything is selling. None of the value has diminished on any of the game's apps. So do keep that in mind if you go to purchase a Nintendo Switch. But what I will say about a Nintendo Switch, it is the perfect complement, again, to the PS4 and the Xbox One, to the PC. So, that's really all I have to say about the Nintendo Switch, guys. I really, really love this console. The more I play it, the more I love it. Like, I don't want to fangasm too hard, because I do love my PS4 and stuff. Yeah, let's move on. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, the final platform that I wanted to discuss with y'all, lower my chair, is the Xbox One and Xbox One X. Now, brace yourselves, I am not at all fond of what this company has been doing for like the past 4 to 5 years, so let's just start with positives, okay? So, the first positive for Microsoft is the Game Pass, in my opinion. I think Game Pass as a service might actually offer you a lot and save you a lot of money in the long run and allow you to try games as opposed to buying them for $60 and wasting your money. However, there's a drawback to it, being that Microsoft hasn't really released any games that are really that relevant, in all honesty, besides Gears and Halo, which, to be honest, a lot of people are tired of those series by now. But again, there's not a lot of good things going for Microsoft, I'm sorry. Another positive thing that Microsoft has going for it, it has great controller design. As far as the Elite controller goes, I think that controller is gorgeous, but there's a drawback with that as well, in that you have to buy AA batteries for it, like a Fisher-Price toy. Again, it's like they can't do one thing right. I'm sorry, I have to shit on this console. It's really that bad, And if you're trying to get into gaming, or if you're just wanting my honest perspective, it's really, really bad to own an Xbox One. Now, one of the true benefits of having an Xbox is if you have the Xbox One X. The Xbox One X is the most powerful at-home console that you can get. You're going to have consistent ports on it. If developers develop for this console properly, the best version of a console game is going to be there. So you know what? If you're into the whole 4K movement and you only play third-party games, maybe the Xbox One X is for you. A lot of people will say also, from anecdotes, again, I have no facts, I think the services are the same in all honesty, but they'll say that Microsoft Live is better, but they're about the same as far as I can tell, in all honesty. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about the Xbox, and let's get into the negatives of why I think this console is a piece of shit and you should not own one, and why there's literally no point at this point. Like, if you don't have an Xbox One already, there's no reason to ever pick one up over a PC, for example. So let's just jump into the negatives. You have a terrible library of games compared to PlayStation and Nintendo. They have way more exclusives. The PS4 even has abundantly more exclusives than the Xbox One. And when it comes to these modern consoles, frame rate isn't really, made as a difference. Like, for example, if you buy the Xbox One X, you're not going to get better frame rates on your games because it doesn't seem devs are trying to push that right now. It's more about your games library, and the games library for Xbox is weak as hell. They're missing a lot of games that PlayStation and Nintendo have, and it's just honestly lame. And the games that do come out for Xbox One that are exclusives are shit for the most part, or are niche genre games. Like, think of the quality games that came out on Xbox One that were actually good. You have the Halo Wars, the new Halo Wars, which is like an RTS game. Most people don't play RTS. It's actually kind of a dying genre. So yeah, there you go. And then you have PUBG, which is in the Battle Royale genre, which is getting beat by Fortnite, which is available on all platforms, and it's free. Not looking good, Microsoft. And the one good game I would say that I do want to play is Cuphead. Cuphead looks fantastic, but it's a side-scroller shooter that is for a hardcore audience. Again, most people, or a decent amount of people, aren't gonna want to play that game because it's, focused on being difficult. So why the fuck would you own an Xbox One over the Nintendo Switch, the PS4, or the PC? So here's my advice to you guys. If you are Microsoft fans, just buy a PC. Even if it's around the same price as the Xbox One or even slightly more, I feel like you're going to be able to upgrade that machine marginally over time, and it's going to become something really good for you. Like, if you spend a couple of years upgrading the graphics drivers or whatever the fuck. Look, I'm not a PC expert, obviously, but there's no reason to own an Xbox One. There's absolutely none. There is nothing compelling about that console. It's almost a joke. Like, the fact that they released the Xbox One X without Crackdown is fucking retarded. And then when Sea of Thieves comes out, it's also a disappointment. Like, it comes out with no content in it after being developed for like 4 to 5 years. Why are Microsoft Studio games so inept? I just don't understand. And then PS4 and Nintendo Switch only being out a year is slaughtering the Xbox One. It is absolutely slaughtering the Xbox One in its library, and it's barely existed. Like, Xbox One is a terrible console, guys. Do not get one under any circumstances. Like, I know I sound very vehement about this, but it's because I like video games. And I feel like Xbox has spat not only in our faces, but in the faces of their own consumers, releasing shitty game after shitty game, trying to hype up games for E3, then never actually delivering on the hype. Like, being a fan of Xbox is being a fan of disappointment, and I have friends that are Xbox fans, and when I go to them and ask them, why should you own an Xbox One, they give me the most bullshit workaround reasons, and the only valid criticism they gave me is, I like the controller. That's it. A controller. That's your salient point of defense for the Xbox One is I like the controller. It's ridiculous, guys. Don't buy an Xbox One. Try to invest in PC gaming if you are into Microsoft Studio games and, you know, third-party games. The only person I can recommend an Xbox One to is someone who wants the best version of a third-party game, and you have to pay $500 for the Xbox One X to do it. The regular Xbox One is a fucking potato and is actually weaker than the base PS4. That's embarrassing. And when it initially launched, you had to buy a Kinect with it, so it was even more expensive. It's ridiculous, dude. Microsoft, they're going the way of the dinosaur. They might become a publisher within the next few years if they keep this up. Because no one wants their fucking console. Nobody wants it. I think they're literally falling behind Nintendo now. So anyways, guys, this is Violent Games. I hope you enjoyed this video. These are just my honest thoughts. Let me know if I left anything out. And hey, if you want to defend Xbox, go right ahead. I'm willing to have a discussion with you, but don't start that comment by calling me a faggot or anything of that nature, because I'll immediately ignore you, because your criticism is obviously not valid if that's how you start a conversation. You would never approach me in public and be like, well, you're a fag. See, that's why I don't listen to those types of people. So do keep that in mind if you want to post a comment or shit post. This is Violent Games signing off. I hope you enjoyed.